Yeah, no problem, Johnny. Anytime. You take your time, dude. Hey, what's up, Artie? Broken Blade, how you doing, man? Guy is here. Hey, what's up, man? Guy says, what up, man? Gotta lurk today as I'm a bit busy, but we'll be hanging around. Yeah, of course, man. I'm happy to have you lurking in the shadows of my home. I'm gonna put a question out there, and those of you who are mods, I think actually Johnny, you're a mod, but I'm gonna be hopefully talking to you a little bit. I want to know if anybody wants me to do a second edition, a second Kickstarter campaign for Black Mirror 1. Because I'm wondering if there's people that just want to like, because I'm trying to set up a storefront, but I'm like, maybe I should just do a second Kickstarter campaign with a different cover. People that missed the first campaign, I'm wondering if that's just what I need to be doing. Yes, a second, to be clear, Guy, a second something in meat tabs needs your attention. Oh. Yes. Sorry. It would be a second edition of the first issue. So it would still be the first issue. But it would just be like a second printing of it because so many people seem to miss the first campaign. And I'm getting so many messages from people being like, hey, when are you going to set up a storefront so I can get the book? And like, I want to set up a website, but it's like the money it's going to take to do that. I'm like, maybe I should just first do a second campaign with like a variant cover, you know? Because it's definitely less work right now while I'm doing all this other stuff. It would be the quickest way to get the book into people's hands. It'd be like a month campaign. Printers would take care of a lot of the work. Give that link a go, Johnny. Yeah, it's in your email. Guy says, if you did, you could try to make more bonus stuff and campaign goals like a poster and such, just like yeah, no, I think that I would have to do something like that, something transformative. Make that maybe one of the tiers of the campaign. You get something extra. I was actually thinking maybe instead of a poster, I would do little bookmarks that I'd print out. Merchandising. Oh,
Hello.
hey Johnny. Let
Well,
me uh,
well, well.
let me
How's it
turn off.
going, buddy?
I'm gonna turn off the music real quick, and I'm gonna turn
Okay.
up the. And you don't. If you want to shut your camera off, it's fine because you're just a disembodied voice anyway. So,
Okay, let me figure out how to do that.
or leave it on. It's fine. It's just funny because
Oh,
only I
you
can
can't
see
even
it,
see.
and you're just like this little
Yeah, you
floating head.
can't see my giant forehead, anyways. So it's okay.
Guys, let me know how's Johnny coming through. Johnny, keep talking for a second.
Okay, so
Oh,
I'm just here at Starbucks. Got my energy drink, my Ghost that I totally need. That's really good for me, and keeps the synapses sharp. And yeah, that's all I got. I
keep.
could. Hmm?
I was gonna say keeps the synapses sharp. I have to remember that.
Yeah, I don't think that's a proper use of the verb, but we
No,
we do what we can, I guess, around here.
hey, listen, I love it. Hey, listen, Shakespeare himself uh, often reimagined the usage of words. That is literally an argument I have made when people have called me out on bad grammar.
I have heard that. I learned that from Alan Moore, and
Yeah.
it makes sense because I feel like that part of my brain wasn't activated. And then when I read or like heard Shakespeare again after hearing that, I was like, "Oh, I get it. It's like a whole thing. It's like the whole brain's firing. I guess it's not just like these words have a function, and it is the function being, you know,
Hmm.
is this function successful or not or whatever. It's like an art or whatever.
Yeah, with
But
Shakespeare,
anyway,
Shakespeare,
oh well,
I kind of get the sense that he was almost using certain words aesthetically. Like he'd be like, I like the sound of this word, so I'm going to create a meaning for this word I made up, and then I'm going to use it in the context of a play, and then you guys are going to use this word for the next like 400 years. It's like
yeah,
crazy. But
yeah, yeah. I would if I could see the stream, I would see what you're drawing, but I don't. I'm afraid if I exit out, I won't. I'll hang up by accident or something. So I
yeah, yeah.
couldn't see what you were drawing. What were you drawing?
Oh, I'm just working on the next Black Mirror page. The same thing I was working on last night. Oh no, you weren't here for the stream last night. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
just chugging away at the pages. Just
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
Those are some cool ass characters. Like all of them are cool. They're all unique, like in their own way. It seems like they're sort of taken from different like IPs, but there's a unity. They all work together. You know what I mean?
Oh, I appreciate that,
Because
man.
yeah, I finally got it in the mail, and I was like, first of all, it looks cool, but like I said, I guess me having focused a lot on scary faces, with what I make,
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, these are cool, and the costumes are cool. Like I think I told you, I forgot his name. I'm sorry. The little vampire guy, or he's kind of a vampire. He's like, his face is kind of wrinkled in, and like that was cool. When I saw him, I was like, it looks, it's kind of dolly, like doll art, but it's not. I think you told me like you didn't want it to be like gory or anything, or you wanted it to be like I forgot what you told me. Do you feel like
Yeah,
talking about that? Or
I can repeat it if but I need to know who you're talking which because there's like a bunch of vampires and you're talking about in Black Mirror. Um,
is it housekeeper or
oh,
homekeeper
oh, the
or
Houseman. Yeah, that's what everybody calls him because
houseman?
yeah, I
Okay,
had to look that up because he was someone. The term houseman was apparently like from the 1800s. Is what you would call a butler. Um,
okay.
but it's more Americanized than saying a butler or like he's. Oh, sorry. Everybody's asking who's talking. But before we go on with that, Johnny, could you introduce yourself to my stream?
I am Johnny Pearson. I've been lurking on the other side of the veil of Ryan's streams, and I'm just some random guy that makes sculptures on the internet and have a day job. So
Yeah,
it's very good to be here. It's good to talk to you finally.
yeah, it's good, man. Well, we're all just random guys, just FYI, everybody.
Yeah,
Just
true.
putting life in context there. But yeah, Johnny is someone who one of the first people I met when I discovered the internet and
Mhm.
started doing things on the internet instead of just like posting my work once a year on some like ArtStation account and then just doing freelance work. I was like, hey, I should probably try connecting with people. Um,
Mhm.
And yeah, Johnny was one of the first people I met really in the digital sense, and we've talked a long time for like the past year. I
Mhm.
feel like we've buddied up quite a bit, and I was like, I really need to hear. I need to hear this man's vague American Southern drawl. I need to hear it, and here it
Yeah,
is. Here's that twang in real time.
yeah.
But Johnny is a really great sculptor. He makes really cool masks and headpieces and busts and some great badass artwork. And he works a lot. He's very prolific. Like every time I talk to him, he's working on a new thing while holding down a day job and
Mm.
probably doing inventions or whatever the hell he does with the rest of his time. But sorry, yeah, you just to go back to what you were saying. So the Houseman,
Mhm.
that's the guy that I think you're talking about, right? The butler who has like a
Y-
little saber.
Yeah, I think he's like the first like creature you see when he gets to the mansion, like at least on the inside of the mansion.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So sorry. So what about him? I'm interested in what you were saying.
What was like the oh, the word I'm having a brain fart.
You're asking like
What was the
what was the
inspiration? Like
yeah.
what exact? Because I it stuck out like big time to me. I was like, there's something uncanny about this character. Like maybe it's something that I really like and I'm not aware of it. Or
Yeah, well, so are you? I'm sure you're familiar with Beetlejuice. An artist who works in
hmm
your medium has probably watched it a few times at least, right?
hmm
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so if you watch Beetlejuice, there's a character in it who only comes up at the end. He's like the officiator of the wedding when Beetlejuice is trying to marry Winona Ryder at the end, and
Okay.
you know what I'm talking about? If you just yeah, like at some point anybody in the chat can Google it and drop it in. And it's this great looking like it looks like a little priest, but
Oh,
he's like
okay.
a lopsided goblin guy with a big head and really dark vacuous eyes, and it always stuck with me, and so I just thought that aesthetic is something I wanted to tap into. He doesn't look exactly like that, but I wanted to pull something of that into this because I was just like that's the vibe I want for Black Mirror. It's like not quite gory horror like you were saying. It was more like I wanted something that felt kind of fun, kind of like you were reading a really cool little Halloween story or something. um,
Yeah.
because I don't want to go so far into horror that it's only attractive to horror fans. I wanted to do something that was
Yeah.
like you know, it's funny because I consume a fair amount of horror, but for some reason I still don't consider myself a horror guy, which is funny to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but I, you know, I took that element of that design and I kind of beefed him up to make him more physically imposing. And there's a thing where you kind of play with scale and proportion. Like I made his head a little too big, and I made everything about him just feels off. Because I was thinking about
Mhm.
like there's this cool lore about vampire familiars of being like they're not quite vampires themselves. They're kind of like
Right.
failed attempts at becoming something else. So
Yeah, or like a fledgling. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So there's something vaguely pathetic about them, even though they're dangerous. And I was like, oh, that's the vibe. That's the vibe right there. You know. So,
Mhm.
but I hope that answers your
Yeah,
question a little bit.
it does. And I was wondering, like, I feel like you've said this, which is what's prompting me to ask. And I like the story's great, and nothing like sticks out at, like nothing sticks out as bad at all. Like I said, it's unified and it all fits together. I'm wondering if did you make an outline for the story or did you discovery write it or like because I know the few times I've made storyboards, it is total. I'm a gardener. I'm figuring it out as I go, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I know I'm just starting with a princess, and the fifth page, she may be she may be in the casino or she may be in space. I have no idea, but
Yeah.
we'll find out when we get there.
Well, to give someone, anyone listening, a little info about Johnny. Johnny also, among the many cool things he makes in visual art and 3D art, he also he does a lot of writing for tabletop games of his own invention. Right? Isn't that right, Johnny? Is that accurate? Um,
Yes, it is. I think I'm the most versed in Vampire the Masquerade. Like D&D's quite complex, and I know such a small fraction of the lore that I feel like my campaigns don't uh, do it justice. But yeah, I got a couple stowed away in some notebooks
yeah.
somewhere here.
But just to give someone a heads up when he's talking about writing, that's probably I would imagine a lot of what Johnny means, but you can let me know if I'm skipping anything, Johnny, because you're a man of many trades. He wears many hats.
Yeah, yeah. Many uh, uh, hats that are torn in half that don't fit me, but they uh, but yeah, that's pretty much where it goes. Like I usually write it down in short story form, and I'm sort of at least imagining that I'm gonna convert it to something with mechanics.
Hmm.
But but yeah, and I'm totally copying from other, uh, like I said, IP or content. So
Yeah, yeah, but I mean,
but
your skills keep growing, and then eventually, I mean, I what I would love, and I will answer your question, I promise, but I'm not done talking about you for a second. What I would love is for you to over time work some of this into your own IP, because I think
mhm.
you've definitely got the talent and the that kind of brain where you could probably come up with something totally from scratch that would be yours. That would be just like, all, or I mean, maybe down the road you can end up working for some of these guys in an official capacity. But it's really about
Mm,
what you
well,
want. But either way, I think you'd be good at it.
thank you. That's very validating.
Yeah.
I'm gonna remember that. 10 years from now, I'm gonna be like, Ryan, that famous comic book artist. He's at all the conventions and he's sitting right by George R. R. Martin. Yeah, he told me I could make it, and I'm here.
I don't.
I made it.
I don't think anybody sits next to George R. R. Martin anymore. I think George R. R. Martin avoids human beings because everybody's going to ask him when the book's coming out, and he's going to be like, "Leave me alone.
Yes, very
I
true.
just want
Yeah,
to play the
I feel
saxophone."
like he's sort of intellectually social. Like he doesn't enjoy. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Like he doesn't enjoy socializing, but he just is like around people when he wants to talk about his books or whatever, and that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, there's also a funny thing about him where I get the sense that he was someone who's like, started writing, and reading comics and writing fantasy novels because I'm awkward and now everybody wants to talk to me. And this is like not the result I was expecting from this. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it's just like not, it's like he was a heavy set kid who was dorky and whatever. And he's not an uncharismatic man. Like when he speaks well and he's not like a cringy weirdo. It's not
Mm,
like he's not like Michael Shannon. Like when that actor Michael. I mean, I
mm.
like Michael Shannon, but when he talks, you're like, is this man about to wear my skin, or is he just nice? And you can't, his vibe
Yeah.
is off. But sorry, what was I saying? Yeah, yeah. So you asking me about the writing process? Honestly, dude, like it's so for Black Marrow, I did something that I hadn't really done in the past, which was
Mhm.
I went in with no script and I just started drawing the book, and
Mm,
and I did kind of what I would call the Marvel method, where I just which is old school Marvel. What they would do is they would essentially uh, basically have a slight mapping of the story, like a
mhm,
vague mapping of it, and then you would essentially draw the whole thing based on that, and then
mhm,
you would add the script afterwards,
mm.
because the whole
Okay.
idea was that you wanted the art, you would like literally write the script to go with the artwork once it was done, like, because you would have a basic idea of the story but you wanted the art to guide the book.
Yeah, and that's a balance, isn't it? Of like,
Yeah,
writing and the art coming together. Because I noticed with special effects, it seems like a lot of movies, like the whole story is built around the scary monster,
yeah,
which I personally don't really like because it's like it's a lot of missed opportunities. It's like the whole story is built around, oh, here's this scary monster, everybody scream, and then they have to add an hour and a half around it. Like
yeah.
maybe I'm being very cynical, but just seems it kind of comes across that way to me sometimes.
No, I think you're on to something there. I think that's so funny story. That's why I don't consider Black Marrow to be horror. uh,
Mm,
and why, like, my back when I was working with an editor, he kept telling me, like, this is horror, you got to categorize it as horror and all that shit. And I was like, no, it's not, though, because the way I always saw it is that in horror, the creature, the monster, is in many ways the star. um
yeah.
and I always thought, like, well, no, it's about the hero black, he's the star. And like, but then the guy was like, yeah, but he's a monster. And I was like, shut up. And that's how I won that argument.
He's
um,
more. Yeah. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
that's
You
a
got.
that's a really good point. Um, but yeah, no,
Um,
I basically do like a Marvel method where and you know what? It's funny because Black Mirror is like the most successful thing I've ever done, which means maybe that's a guide for me for writing from now on. Is that I should probably think less and just act more because I just like I literally designed Black Mirror on the first page where he appears. I just
mhm,
I don't know. It's unlike anything else I've done where I had a really clear image of what he looked like.
mm,
It's just popped in my head, and I was like, oh right, that's a whole thing. And then the whole story just came together from that. And granted, it's a very simple story. It's like a very I'm not writing it's not the movie Heat over here. It's not, it's like hero goes
mhm,
into haunted castle, kills some monsters, rescues kid, rides out. Like that's it. I think,
mhm,
and because I was trying to play to my strengths, which is that like I'm not a great plotter, but I'm really good with dialogue. Um, and I'm really good with
mhm,
action. So if I just focus on those two things, like really nice, quippy dialogue and some cool action sequences, that's going to be the main draw to the book.
mhm.
So, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I wonder if our, as artists and writers, our internal editor is so strong because we're trying to do a good job. We're picking apart everything we do that we get in our own way
Hmm.
of just making some damn thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have so much practice, at least that like something is better than nothing. Like making something in a month is better than sitting around in our mind palace for an hour
Hmm.
trying to come up with some super original thing that's going to blow everybody away, and then we don't make anything. You know?
You just hit it on the head, man. The advice that I
Yeah.
would give to a lot of people is to stop trying to work on your opus and just or no, don't not work on your opus, but don't spend too long in the planning phase because after a while that becomes you start to kind of get off on that. Like, it's like if you just keep focusing on imagining the project, you're getting a certain endorphin, like a what do you call it, like a dopamine hit from thinking
Yeah.
about how awesome
Yeah.
it's going to be, and then you're not
Yeah.
you're not making yourself actually do it. So I would say, because I have friends who are like that, who they spend, one friend in particular who I think is actually has the makings of possibly being a really great writer, but he spends so much time in the planning phase that he never actually writes the story. He just constantly will keep writing plot points over and over and like mapping it out and
Hmm.
doing lore and world building, and then he just like when it comes time to like, okay, introduction of the main character, how does he come about, what's the first line of the book or the script or whatever, he just like, oh god, I can't do this. And it's like,
Well, and what's weird is
yeah.
like that point you're talking about where you have to sit down and, put the rubber to the road or whatever is
Hmm.
for some reason all those wonderful ideas for me, they go right out the window. And it's like, oh shit, now you're confronted with the actual physical thing of writing it down. And I think part of the reason the ideas are so appealing is because they're kind of easy. Like ideas are a dime a dozen, aren't they?
Yeah.
But actually implementing them is the thing, right? And
Yeah.
that's where the medium comes in, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder, for some reason, what's coming to mind for me is like, you know, we, I'm assuming, you grew up on films like I did.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so films films have how many people working on them, especially now, and say just the artists will do 6 months of research and development before they do anything. And that's just one of the artists of however the dozens of artists in just the art department.
Yeah.
So I wonder if us consuming those things that all this time, I mean, is it thousands of hours, combined?
Hmm.
And it's just in an hour and a half, and we watch it and go, okay, I need to, whatever's going on right there, I need to mimic that, but I can't because I'm not an art department and a costume department and the writers and the director. And we get
Oh,
like this sense of like we need to measure up to that. So we spend a month, I'm gonna get this good idea, and it's just not possible. But the second you make something, it's at least a copy. You know what I mean?
that's a
So I
really
wonder.
that's a very wise perspective. That's yeah,
Yeah.
because wow, that's And it's not like that in other fields because if you're a painter and there's a painter you like, you're looking at that painter. You know, if you're a sculptor, if you're any other field of individuals, even if you're someone who like wants to be a professional athlete, you're looking at an individual athlete. You're not, you know, you compare yourself to Michael Jordan. That's not the same as comparing yourself to the Chicago Bulls. Um,
Right.
and like,
Right.
you know, you can't do what all five of those guys are going to do. Um, so I do think that, that's a very smart way of kind of, I mean, you got to own the fact that like sometimes we just not being good to ourselves because it's like you're
Yeah.
right, it's insane. Like you're looking at a movie and you're like, I want to be able to do that. And it's like, well, that was accomplished with like a small country's worth of people. Um,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah, and money literally just given to them, and you sit down and you're like, "Oh, wait, I'm just sitting here." I need, this has to be financed somehow, and I don't have executives and wherever big films get, the hundreds of millions of dollars they get. I guess investors or something, but
yeah,
or
no, it's
people that
true.
it's their business to invest in movies. I'm not sure, but yeah, yeah. That's it. Like, but that's what I've noticed is like I'll learn about hearing you talk about making your comic and other stuff and hearing filmmakers talk about making films, it's like even being somebody that makes stuff, I still learn like there's a lot more that goes on into making things than you would think. Like even paintings,
Yeah,
like, just that one medium, like a good, like if you look at a really realistic painting, that took 100, 200 hours. I didn't even really realize that until like a year or so ago. Like I thought they were just so good and they had such like an economy of uh their wrist movements or whatever
mm-hmm.
that it just looked that way. But it's like, oh, they're sitting in one spot for they're working on the eye for 10 hours.
Yeah,
That's why it looks like that.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. Well, I think some of that misconception you're describing comes from the digital painting age that we live in, where like, you know,
speed paint.
you see a lot of speed paint, yeah, and even when it's not speed paint, you see a lot of time lapse. And even though you intellectually understand when you're looking at a time lapse that people are not working at that speed, they're working much slower, it's hard for your instinct, like your body, to feel that time. Your body feels like they're moving really fast. Um, it's like it's really weird. It's like you have a visceral reaction where you're like, oh, this is this is what a professional painter looks like. They just zip
Yeah.
through an image and they create something incredible, and then they go and eat like a sandwich. When in reality, it's like, you know, that guy, that person is just slaving away. I mean, like there's artists who people like, you know, Dave. You catch Dave Raposa's stream
Hmm.
sometimes, right? And like he's
Yeah.
someone who is considered really fast,
Yeah.
and uh, it still takes him a while to perfect a painting. Like he really, you know. Um,
Hmm.
and then Dan,
Hmm.
you know, Dan always jokes with me about how slow he is, and like,
Oh.
but
Hmm.
like his supposed slowness is actually much more what I imagined for the level of painting that, you know, that you see in some of these guys.
Yeah.
I've started doing more painting and illustration and stuff, and the
Hmm.
fact that I've spent so much time drawing, like doing like line art, really helped me like a lot, like an insane amount, like to the point where the transition to painting has been like extremely smooth. Um,
Oh, yeah. I can't. You said, did you go to art school? Because I did not. I went to school for music and took a couple art classes, which were enlightening. But that's really all the actual class experience I have. So I can't.
I,
I
I
can't remember what you said.
I did go to art school, but I think I've said I think I've not been shy about saying that I regret it completely. It was
Oh yeah.
not a good use of my money. No, it was I went to a fine art school, which,
Yeah.
you know, it's like as someone who loves comics, I was like, whoa, no, I'm in the wrong place, but it's too late. Um,
Yeah. My yeah. I wonder if you just you're a victim to the whims of the teachers' egos. Like, not that they're egotistical or teachers are all bad, but it's just like I feel like maybe sometimes they're trying to
yeah,
prove that their style is ideal or something, and they try to, use their students as like a vehicle for that somehow.
yeah. I
I
mean,
don't know.
yeah, I agree, but I also think it goes further than that. I think it's also just like the fine art culture, the like modern, specifically modern art culture, is,
Mm.
at least when I was at school. This is about 140 years ago. Um,
Oh yeah.
it was it was very antagonistic toward people who did comic art, because I think like commercial art is really just like such a bad word. It's such a bad word to them. So like the fact that like my goal was to work in commercial art because that's what I liked. I like illustration. I like comics. I like card games and fantasy art and all that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
that was the big thing. It was much more cultural and less about the individual teacher, from what I could see. The individual professor was like, it was a crapshoot, and like even the ones who were somewhat warm to comic art, where they were like, "Oh, I like comic art. It's cool that you want to do that." The stuff that they had in mind was like not the kind of comic art that I clearly am interested
Oh,
in. It would be like everybody thinks art, like everybody who doesn't read many comics, who just kind of is like in that field, they love like R. Crumb, and they love Harvey Picar, and then these guys who are like, I'm a neurotic artist, here's a
yeah.
comic book about my musings and my, and it's like, I want to do a comic that's like about King Arthur. I want to do big battle scenes. I want to do, you know,
Yeah.
like that's the kind of stuff I was into. I grew up reading Marvel and DC, like, and I still think that stuff is like, in my opinion, that's like the peak of comic creation. The classics. There's a reason they're the classics. And something I couldn't stand is I would go to these classes that would be like history of comic art. I'm like, oh, cool. And then I would go and attend the course, and it would be the entire thing would completely ignore the idea of the superhero comic because they didn't like it. So they would just pretend that comic art history was all like, like R. Crumb and Harvey Picar. Like it was just crazy. I was like, you guys are in an alternate
Wow.
reality where like,
Yeah.
it's yeah. So that bothered me. But then I did go to art
Yeah.
school, but sorry, I'm almost done. I did go to art school, but I do feel like if I could do it again, I would probably try to major in business so that I didn't have such a high learning curve to running my own freelancer business. But there you go, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, that's really good to know. Like I I wonder if it's just like a tyranny on like what the ideal technique is. Because painting realistically is really fucking hard. Like painting like real life colors the way you see them. It's like what you can't where you shouldn't use black paint, or not using black paint will help you to learn like things aren't as dark as you think they are, even though
Yeah,
most things are kind of gray. And maybe they get caught up in trying to teach that, and it's easy to look at a comic artist and not see, the amazing coordination they have with drawing, and how good of a job they did with putting the darks in and the shape design,
yeah,
which for me is a weakness because that takes a lot of brain power and a lot of understanding, and you have to have an extensive visual library to do that. But it's easy to take like a paint mixing class and look at comic art and say, oh no, I see pitch black in there and I see these really hard lines. That's easy for me to look at and point at. Well, that's easy.
yeah.
That's not real art. So what's real art is this thing, whatever this landscape painting is, which I love landscape paintings.
Me
I've
too.
done plenty of them, but you know what I mean. I
Yeah,
think it's just easy. I don't know, like I don't know what it is. I guess
yeah.
it's just kind of the nature of the medium of institutions or something. I
Well,
really don't
I think
know
that's a
'cause I
part of it,
never.
but here's what's funny about that is that the modern art field is not built on any sense of realism these days, or even a commitment to like representational art. So that
Oh,
bias of like, oh, this is like, the idea that comic art is easier than painting, which I've heard
mhm.
from many painters is not true. um, like that
Yeah.
idea is actually, I don't even know if that was the problem, because of the fact that so many of the painters were just doing like, here's a square on a canvas, like give me a degree now.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that, so if I had to boil it down, I would say the real thing that was getting in the way for a lot of people who had a problem with comic art is just the content. I think I think it's the content.
Hmm.
I think it's the fact that it's like comics, particularly American comics and Japanese. Well, actually, most comics, they're really built on action and adventure. They're very
Hmm.
masculine. They're very like, I mean, there's obviously feminine stuff in there, and there's plenty of great female creators making stuff aimed at women, and they're making great stuff. But generally, like comics are, it's like a medium that's been largely, and even now still highly populated by male artists and writers making like big action adventure stories with like, stuff
Yeah,
like
stuff exploding and people fighting and yeah.
yeah, and
It's like,
like a lot of the modern art field is kind of biased against that. They don't. It's like they don't think that like an action movie is art. You know what I mean? Which is just funny to me because it's like some of the most incredible movies ever made have had some of the best battle scenes, and that's a part of the excitement of it. You know, so I think that that's some of the bias against it is that like, oh, you're just a dude bro doing dude bro things, and the fact that you can draw is
oh,
just
it's
yeah,
a temperament thing. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense too. Cause like,
yeah.
yeah, I wonder if I thought the same thing for like 5 minutes when I was like 20. You know what I mean? And like I was like, well, no, Die Hard is really cool. It's not like intellectually finessed or like, there's like deep like bookish philosophical ideas
Hmm.
being danced around, but it's like this is some good acting and some good cinematography,
I agree.
and
Yeah.
the writing is cool. And I wonder also if part of people not liking it is it's pulled off well. You know what I mean? It's like it worked, and it's
Yeah,
like,
that pissed
yeah,
him
it's like
off.
this comic is like I so I have like a couple comics that I bought like myself and read, and I was like, what you're talking about with like a lot of it's masculine is the ones that I got are not, and it's not what I expected. It's newer stuff, and I don't want to badmouth any writers, but so I'm not gonna mention names. It's not the point. It doesn't matter. But like the reading it, I was like, is this a comic book or like a romance? Like, what is this? Is this the Golden Girls or like, which is fine. The Golden Girls is cool, but it's like it's not what I expected from a comic book. It's like, I expected Wonder Woman to be kicking some dudes' asses, not like what I got.
Uh,
It's like it's just changed.
can
You know what I
I
mean?
know you don't want to badmouth anybody, but I do want to hear which book this is.
It is Earth One. It's Wonder Woman Earth One is what I was referring
Okay,
to.
I haven't read it, but I do.
It's it
Yeah, go ahead.
it's great. Like the comics are the costumes are great, and the story I actually felt like some warmth from the story, and it was great. But it just kind of, for some reason, like I was like something's wrong here, and I don't know what it is. I'm not, that's for somebody that's much better to say than me. But me being the dummy going, oh, I was expecting something else, that's
I think
that's
you're.
really
I
all I
actually
expect.
think you're totally within your rights to say that you want it to be different, because I think that what you're
Yeah.
describing is. Oh wait, before I get into that, let me check the chat. I think I missed a bunch. Um, guys in the chat, he says, "Man, I was just thinking it, and it's been like 1 year since I met you both already. What the fuck? Time flies. Yeah. Oh, it's because I was talking about
I don't
how
know.
you and I got to know each other. Broken Blade says, when is it okay to not place a background in a comic book scene? Um, so the rule that I tend to stick with is that some artists do a background like every panel, and I used to do that stuff when I was a try hard 20 something trying to prove that I could. Really, you want to treat a background as it's just like any other character in the story. You want to feature it when it adds something. Um, and so, like the reason I'm making sure there's a background in this final panel is because I'm going to show the guy in his jail cell watching Black Mirror and Canterbury beat the shit out of each other. Um, because it's funny, but also because it reminds you. It's you want to use it as a way of letting the audience, the reader, know where things are. It's very spatial. Um, because if in a scene like this, these two guys are fighting, you need to know where they're fighting in order to understand the danger of the scene. And the comedy of it is that they're these two big guys beating the crap out of each other in a very narrow hallway of a train. So they're just like smashing into stuff, and everybody's upset because they're ruining everybody's like calm. Um, but I would say
That's awesome.
you don't need to do it every panel because it's like if you do, you can lose some of the focus. Like if you look at these middle panels, Broken Blade, I keep the backgrounds out of it because we're so focused on Canterbury's face as he's getting punched over and over that you want to feel like he's separated from the background, and then we jump back to the background for the final panel to make sure you remember where they are. Um, let's see. Broken Blade says, I've learned the hard way that comic book artists are amongst the most skilled. They have to know how to draw anything. That's very true. It's very true that we have to, and that we learn how to hide the things we're not good at drawing. I avoided drawing cars for years because I'm not good at it and I don't like drawing it. But then I had to like force myself because I was working on a police drama.
Right.
I was working on a police drama comic based in the city, So like try to avoid drawing cars when you're doing like Serpico. Like that's not going to work. Um, and I think really good way, and a lot of comic artists learn this, is that a really good way to get better at drawing something is to find out why that thing is interesting, and then like you'll develop a love of that thing, and then you'll just start drawing it better, and because you'll enjoy it. Guy says, okay, he's talking to Broken Blade. I don't want to interrupt their conversation. They're talking about Bleach, the anime. I've never seen it. Um, let me check. Did I miss anything else? Okay, that's it. They're talking about. I want to know what you guys. I want to check the chat later and see. I want to learn about Bleach. You guys can teach me about it. I keep seeing it come up. But I'm sorry. Did you ask me a question? Did you say something and then I cut you off, Johnny?
No, I don't. If I did, I've forgotten. I guess it wasn't that important.
I'm sorry.
But no, that's okay. I've never seen Bleach though. I don't know how you feel about like anime.
It's
I
hit or
love a
miss for me.
couple of them.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess I don't understand that language of storytelling. But it's not. I'm not saying it's bad. I've given some stuff a chance, and like I just can't. I can't like tune into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
it's not easy to get invested sometimes if you're not used to that particular tone. Because
yeah,
Japanese culture has a very different approach to some of the stuff than they do in the States. And
true.
but I
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
say,
American.
so go on.
Hmm?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Like Western storytelling is more like character driven, right? And I think a lot of animes not. I don't know what the other would be, but it's more, Western's more like the motivations, like what do you want, what do the characters want, and what they get, and their environment sort of feeds into that. And I
I think it
guess,
really does depend on the anime because the ones that I've seen recently are extremely character driven.
mhm,
And those are the ones that I like the most. I think you and I, as Westerners, have a bias toward character driven stuff because Western culture is a little more individualistic. And then I think a lot of Japanese stuff, at least in the past, was much more driven by plot and
mm,
like situations and ideas. And then the
mm,
characters were kind of stand-ins for types of people, which is more of an Eastern idea. Like even if you look at like Eastern fairy tales, it's like a lot of the characters, like early Eastern lore, like fairy tales from like the Far East. A lot of the characters are like nameless wise man, peasant, king type. Like you just they're roles.
right.
And then with Western stories, a lot of the characters like have names and have history, and so there's like
Yeah, yeah,
it's which is really interesting. But then when you get to like, for example, I saw Chainsaw Man,
yeah, yeah.
and have you seen it?
I have not. I've seen some figures in an anime store in Little Rock.
I
He looks cool, but I've never watched it.
I absolutely adored it. I did not know I was
Mm,
going to love it that much. I was like, because I was like, this sounds weird, but everybody was talking about it. And then I gave it a chance. And by the end of like the second episode, I was really hooked. It's really darkly funny and hilarious. Incredible
mhm,
animation, like just beautiful to look at.
mm,
And also one of the most compelling main characters in anything I've seen because he's so. It's like the whole thing of the Chainsaw Man is like he represents like pure desire and id. Like he's just it's like such a
mm.
masculine thing. He has chainsaws coming out of every part of his body. So
He he
he's
turned he turns into Chainsaw Man, doesn't he?
yeah,
Or is he always
he like
Chainsaw Man?
transforms like Captain Planet, and it's so funny because the whole idea it's like representative as far as I interpret it of like male sexuality. Like he's a
Yeah, yeah,
big part of the story is like him just he wants to save the world because he just wants someone to like feed him and have sex with him. Um,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
would think that would get old fast, but it becomes so funny. Like there's this great scene that I always reference when I'm talking to people who haven't seen it or who have seen it, where I just think it's one of the funniest things is he's talking to this other guy who's like more of a conventional stoic Japanese hero. And the guy's like, listen, I actually care about saving the world. And you're just like here trying to get into people's pants and trying to eat dumplings and shit. Like, why would I respect you? And he's like, I'll tell you why. He's like, because I care just as much about hooking up with girls as you care about saving the world. He's like, I take this so seriously. He's like, this is not a joke to me. Like, are you kidding? It's not a joke at all. It's like, I really, really like sex and dumplings. Like um, and that's just
Funny.
I mean, the delivery, obviously I'm butchering it, but no,
Yeah.
it is. And then it's one of those things that they're able to do in an anime where the tone shifts over time. and then you're like,
Hmm.
oh, this is actually like brilliant. Like you start to get really invested, and then the characters start to become. Um, there's some tragedy and there's some real stuff, and they do it all with while maintaining um, this weird tone where it's like it feels like it was initially a joke, and then it forgot to be funny anymore. You know. But anyways, no, it's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
It's cool. I would give them the big recommend.
yeah. Yeah. I don't watch. You would it would sicken you how much I haven't seen. I haven't seen The Walking Dead. I haven't seen Game of Thrones. I haven't seen Breaking Bad. I haven't seen pretty much any anime. I have seen Death Note, so I don't know what that does for me. But there's just and there's a bunch of new stuff now that's out that I hear coworkers talking about. That's like it's not like uh, it's not like fantasy or anything like that. They're just like noir stories, but they're apparently really big. But I haven't seen anything. And I need to. I keep telling myself it's like homework. I keep giving myself. I need to like just get the Game of Thrones seasons and just have it playing and
Well,
watch it.
I'm sure I'm not the only one here who's going to tell you that maybe you shouldn't watch Game of Thrones. Because I'm
Right.
sure, even though you haven't seen it, you've heard what people feel
Yeah.
about it. That is maybe historically the most incredible drop off in quality that I've ever seen on a TV show. It was shocking to a lot of people. I mean, when you find out what was
Mm-mm.
happening behind the scenes, it makes sense, like why it suddenly stopped being smart. But man, it was it was incredible to watch it go from like a really well written show to just being like hot trash. Um, Over the course of like two seasons until finally in the last season, you know what's funny? This is gonna bother some people because it's like leaving a note unresolved. But I've watched every episode of Game of Thrones, but then I didn't watch the final episode, and I never will.
Yeah.
I just
Did you hear about it or
Well,
just?
I just didn't want to. Yeah, I found out what happens afterwards, but I didn't want to see it because the episode right before that was so bad. It was
Mm.
so badly made. It was so badly written. It was so nonsensical. I was blown away at how stupid the writing was. Like I couldn't believe this was done by a professional. Like just any number of things about it that I was like, I don't care how it ends anymore, and I'm not gonna watch it. So I've seen all of it except the final hour, and I was like, I looked up what happened. I watched videos, people talking about it, and I was like, wow, I'm really glad I didn't waste another hour of my life on that. Um, so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't even want to give them the satisfaction.
yeah,
I don't want it to resolve.
yeah,
I don't want it to resolve. Just leave me out of it. I don't want to associate with this at all.
yeah. Well, you know, the writers of the show, the ones who were adapting it from the book, their careers like kind of over now because they botched the ending. So you know what happened was, so they apparently had a deal with Disney that they were going to do a Star Wars trilogy. Um, and they were like, "Oh, sick, that's great." So they were like rushing through the ending of Game of Thrones so they could get to the Star Wars trilogy that they wanted to make because they had already done Game of Thrones for like a decade. They were like, "We're tired of this." Um,
Mm.
and then they botched the ending of Game of Thrones so bad through rushing it that Disney severed the contract. So they ended up like destroying their reputations as writers and then no other work in sight because the thing that they gave it up for was that this is just like not happening anymore, which is just like I have a tremendous amount of Schadenfreude about it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. Anyways,
man. Okay. Yeah, I can't imagine. That's just a big fiasco. I didn't, and like, I mean, when it came out in like 2012 or 2000,
the first season,
the yeah,
I would say probably even before that. I think it's a little older than that because it went on for like 5 seasons, 6 seasons or something. Um,
yeah.
and it ended like 3 or 4 years ago. Um, so
My taste is so weird. I come to stuff late. Like if like I remember seeing people wearing like lanyards that had like was it House of like there's like different I guess like castles or what different like kingdoms or whatever in the
yeah,
story
the
and like
houses or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, okay, I'll watch it because I come to stuff so late. I come to stuff like many years late.
Hmm.
I, I I guess after the hype dies down for some reason, which is fun. Which actually, I was going to ask you something. Which this is kind of on the subject.
Yeah.
I realized like I don't know how I don't know how you are about this. Like you start working on something and maybe you realize how much you know or how well something suits you, like a subject matter or style or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
I noticed like when I changed mediums, like changed between drawing to painting and then painting to sculpting,
Mm-hmm.
I would sit down and I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna make this thing, and I really like this thing. I remember playing this one game. For me, I can be specific. It was like the Elder Scrolls. It was like Oblivion or something like that, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe Resident Evil 4, and being like, yeah, I really like this thing. This is me. This is my shit. I'm gonna make this, and then sit down to make it, and I go, I don't know my ass from my elbow about this. Why do I like this so much? You know what I mean? Like, and then and then upon further further investigation, I realized there's all this stuff I missed. It's like, for example, Elder Scrolls. It's like, yeah, there was Morrowind and Daggerfall, and there was the stuff before that, and it's fantasy related. Like Elder Scrolls is kind of based off of the D&D uh, world, and D&D kind of came from Lord of the Rings,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I didn't know that, but I liked it so much. I just liked glass armor in the game so
Yeah.
much that it was like my whole artistic identity came from that one thing, and then sat down and went, what the fuck am I doing? What the hell? Why do I like this so much?
Yeah. That's
Has
funny.
that ever happened to you, or is that just me, or what? Or is that being a late? Because I didn't start drawing until I was like 17 or 18. Like I didn't draw a
Oh.
picture before that, and I didn't know any visual artist. I just kind of picked it up one day. So I don't know if that's normal or what.
That's a good question. I don't know. I bet you I bet you that's happened. I promise you that I've done that where I was like really into something and then I realized I was into it for like one simple cosmetic element. Um,
Yeah.
like I mean, like Terminator, for example. I think that would probably be a big one for me. I love the Terminator movies, and at a certain point, I remember being like 9 and being like, I want to do a superhero that's kind of like Terminator, and I was like drawing my own comics at that age already and stuff. And then after a certain amount of time, I just realized, oh, the entire thing for me was that I really liked that scene from Terminator 2 where the two Terminators fight in the shopping mall. You know what I'm talking about? You ever
Uh,
seen it? And they like
yeah, yeah.
they like throw each other around. I love that scene so much that I was like, oh, that's my entire idea is just to do that scene for 20 something pages. I was like, this is not an idea. This is just me like fanboying over like one of my favorite like
Yes.
monster fights in a movie. It's just like
Yeah, and I
such
noticed.
a
Yeah,
dumbass.
yeah. Yeah, and I noticed with me, like, you were talking about horror, your like how you work with horror, and
Mm-hmm.
which you don't really, but like that's kind of how I am. Like, I've realized like a lot of what I make is horror based, or
Mm-hmm.
what, especially used to. Like when I started like drawing with Copic markers, and I wanted to get good at that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I drew was horror portraits. It was all horror portraits.
Sure.
And I looked at my repertoire and my portfolio and I was like, I don't I mean horror's okay, but like why this isn't all I like. Like why is this all I'm making? Like I like plenty of stuff, but for some reason I hyper fixated on that. And
Yeah.
I was just like it's like what?
What's
I don't know.
wrong
I
with
don't know
me?
if it's just yeah, it's just like a different side. Like maybe I don't know, like your motivations like it's sort of informed by, I had this friend that she drew tentacles all the time. So I kind of picked up on that, and that led me to this, and that led me to this. Maybe it's that. I'm not sure. But
Well, I don't know. I think with a lot of guys they go toward horror because um I think for a lot of artists who are like more kind of masculine in their mindset, drawing ugly stuff is really easy because
yes.
I think no, I mean, obviously it's hard to create a cool monster that takes talent, but what I'm saying is like, for example, okay, so I was very late in learning how to draw women really well, especially pretty girls, because
Right.
I spent so much time drawing like angry, muscular men when I was a kid because I liked like muscles and monsters and stuff that like it's a lot easier to make that understood when you're drawing something like big and scary and ugly or whatever, because the conditions for failure are much more obscure. Whereas, like, if you're trying to make an attractive person a beautiful human, the conditions for failure are extremely opaque, and they're there all the time. You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
like um that is a particular skill, drawing like beauty, like making something, sexy or beautiful, or even, it doesn't have to be sexy. It could even just be like a beautiful child. Like drawing a child is it's like amazing to me how many artists who are making bank every year in comics, for example, can't draw kids. Like they don't know how to do it. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to name the artist, but he's an artist who is like doing like doing really well like for decades, and then he was working on a Superman comic where he had to draw a scene of Clark Kent as a kid, and it was comical because it was very clear he didn't know how to draw kids because his Clark Kent looked like a miniature man, like a little Adele, just like shrunk.
Oh no.
And
Oh
like
no.
because you got to learn that kid, you got to, like, when you look at kids and draw them, like you got to realize kids have different skull shapes, because when you're a little kid, your skull is a little bigger, but in proportion to your body, because
Yeah.
you're growing, and you're growing into your head shape, and your proportions are different. Kids tend to have more prominent eyes, because it's like the eyes kind of grow first, and we kind of get bigger as we grow into it. Like that's why there's like, whenever you're looking at animation and they want to make like a really adorable child, they'll always like almost always give them like really big prominent eyes, because it's like something in your brain as an adult, it signifies like, oh, things that are small with big eyes are things that deserve protection because they're probably innocent or children or whatever. Like we're just wired that way. And this guy just didn't
Yes.
have that. Instead, he just drew like, it looked hilarious. It looked like a 30-year-old man who just like was it left in the dryer too long, and it was
You should have. You know how like you work really hard on like a figurative drawing, and you haven't worked on the face yet, and you don't know where to put it, and you just put like a smiley face on it just to be funny. He should have done that.
yeah,
Burn
that's
it, go. They'll love it.
it's art, damn it. Um,
Yeah, it's a comment to the struggle of the artist, and it's not what it seems.
it's
We have internal battles that
yeah,
the consumers don't know about.
it's definitely not me avoiding something that I'm not good at. Don't
Yeah,
even think that
exactly.
for a second. Um,
Yes. Yeah. 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 I've also noticed that in myself. Like, it's like I start to get good at one thing
mhm.
and try to do something. Like, it's funny, you said cars. I'm the same way. I cannot draw. If I draw a car, it does not even look like a car. I don't even know what it is, but it's
Yeah,
like I can't do it.
it's like a
And
breadstick.
like just sort of realizing like, yeah, like just realizing like, okay, like I can sculpt somebody standing in contrapposto or the standard contrapposto pose. That's really, really easy.
Hmm.
And I lean them forward a little bit and everything just goes south. You know what I mean? It's like a total it's like that's definitely a skill and an experience thing.
Yeah,
And I think it helps, I guess that's where the fundamentals help. You can abstract them or separate them or whatever and like
yeah.
separate the fundamentals and yeah, yeah.
No,
Um
I totally understand what you mean. Yeah, it's man, it's one of those things where like you don't realize it until you try to do it, and it sucks. Um,
yes.
because like my cars for years, they just look like breadsticks. Like when they were just these awful looking things, and it would be like, and then I would draw a person, you know, a humanoid creature, and it had, anatomy, and it looked really polished and professional. And then they'd be like, okay, cool, and now we need a car chase, and I'm like, nope, you rewrite your script. I'm not doing it. Um, but so the realization that I wasn't good at it because I didn't enjoy it was actually quite liberating, because I was like, oh, right, there was a time I didn't like to draw hands when I was a little kid because I wasn't good at drawing hands.
Yeah.
Now I draw them all the time and I like drawing them. So, like, maybe I should just keep my head down and do the fucking work, and then it'll get better, and then I'll, not have to worry about it. And now I don't really, there's not one particular thing that I like avoid drawing, thankfully.
Hmm.
Now it's more a matter of like minimizing work reasonably while still, because it's not to go off on talking about my own shit, but it's just like
No,
um,
that's not.
it's something that I've kind of had to balance out is like, most people haven't heard of me. Like I have a small reader base. Like some people know me from other books I've done, and I have a nice, little fan base of people that are like friendly and will buy my stuff because they think I'm an interesting, weird voice on the scene or whatever you want to call it. But like
Mhm.
I know that I'm still fairly obscure to a lot of people. So when I did Black Mirror 1, like the assignment that I gave myself was like, I have to make the art look super polished, like to the point where people go like, how have I not heard of this guy? Um,
Right.
because if I made a distinct choice to not do like the indie comic look, quote unquote, where it's like quirky. Like I'm not going for quirky artwork. I'm going for like stuff that looks like it could be, like something you should have heard of before.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's very easy for for something, especially with this content, to slip into like uh quirky, like quirky indie comic thing. And I didn't want that vibe. I wanted to feel like a nice big production where you're like, ooh, um and that was something that was like a very curated decision where I was like, oh, what happened here? Whoops, my iPad's doing something.
Well,
um
you wanted people to see it and say, "Wow, this guy put in a lot of effort and he really knows what he's doing." And you wanted it to be obvious. You didn't want it to just be like you said, something quirky or just some like,
yeah.
"Oh, look, I made this comic, ha ha ha." It's like,
Yeah, I want people to feel like they were looking at like a big budget movie, quote unquote, where you're
yeah.
like, oh, this is like something new and exciting. um and that's been something I still think about when I work on book 2, because I'm also trying to balance out now, like, okay, how far is too far into that mindset where it's like, if I try to make every page a Rembrandtian thing, like it's never going to be done. It's going to be a book that, so now I'm trying to like, I think I struck a pretty good balance. I hope, because there was a point where I was like, I'm overdoing it. Like every page was like a painting. I was like, you had to stop, because at this point, it's like you're hitting a point of diminishing returns. Where if it gets too rendered and too like quote unquote pretty, it actually loses some of the visceral quality, which takes me back to what you were
Okay.
saying, about like why we like, sometimes people just like ugly monsters and shit, you know.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So, but
yeah, it's more descriptive.
I'm gonna have to leave in a minute, but I want to, before I go in like 2 minutes, I would love for you to say
Sing a song.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I want 3 chords of whatever your favorite power ballad is. No, I mean, I actually would love for you to address the audience for anything you want them to know about you or anything else you want to talk about before I go.
Oh, I'm curious what anybody like watching, like put it in the comments or in the chat. I'm curious what sculptors come to mind for you, because a lot of what we see is digital art in games, and it's a digital sculptor, and a lot of times that person's name gets pushed away, pushed back, or you can't even figure out who they are. Like if you see a model in a game, I can't figure out who made it. So I'm wondering
Mm,
who, like, what sculptors just come to mind for people. I can probably guess, but I would just like to know other people's perspective,
that's a
because you know,
great, great question.
yeah, yeah, because I think we get so close to what we do, we lose like sight of things. And I'm just, I'm sure plenty of people know somebody I don't know about, or because it is definitely an esoteric interest. So yeah.
That's a really great, yeah, because it's like 5 really that people think about a lot, probably.
Yeah, well, it's like Rodin, Michelangelo, and like, is that it? Like, am I missing anybody?
I guess I'm thinking of modern school. I'm thinking of like Rick Baker and
Oh, like special effect. Yeah, yeah. Well, that would, yeah, yeah. That's then that would be it. That would be what comes to mind.
yeah, that's where my head goes. Is was like Rick Baker and like Jim Henson, because I mean, sculpting is a huge part of what they did. Even though technically, I guess they wouldn't be considered sculptors outright. Um, yeah, that's a great
Right.
question. Let's throw that to the chat. If anybody wants to answer here in the chat or in the Discord, let me know, because that's a really fascinating question.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you do your very masculine, manly things, and I'm gonna go to work and be very happy at work. All right.
The masculine thing that I'm doing is picking up my girlfriend, my fiance, from her job. That's it. That's what I have to do in 5
Oh, okay.
minutes.
That's well. That isn't that our role?
It
We're here
is.
to serve, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. I am definitely living a life of service, but I get off on it. So, all right. I'll see you later,
All
man.
right, buddy.
Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, it has been so good to talk to you. I will talk to you later.
Yeah, man. See you next
All
time.
right. Bye bye.
Later, bud. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. That was really cool. I gotta go pick up Malka from work because I did the stream a little early today. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. I think I'm gonna rename this video and call it the Big Draw. I think he'll get his own episode of that. I think that's probably how it should be. I don't know why I didn't do that already. All right, guys, have a good one. I'll see you later. Maybe tonight. I don't know.